Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit more about design. I'm going to talk more about what design actually is and what it means and how perhaps you design as well. I'm going to talk about a couple of fundamental design movements. So it's generally focusing on modern design. Well, when I talk about modern design, I'm talking about modernism. Well, modernism was born out of Germany, really, out of a movement called the Bauhaus. And the idea being that there needed to be a new type of design for a new world. A world which had shrunk. It had shrunk because people could get to places much, much quicker. You had planes, you had railways, you had much improved technology, crossing water. So modernism was born out of a new world and a new world designed for. Now the great mantra, so when I say mantra, I mean phrase, saying for modernism is form follows function. Okay? Do you guys know what form is? Well, form is the design of something. It's aesthetic, the way it looks. So this is a Coca-Cola bottle. It's a very iconic design. There's a myriad, many different ways you can design a drinking vessel. But this is very iconic. It's been designed with form in mind to create an iconic looking product. Now function is its use, its functionality. Now there's nothing more functional than a hammer, is there? When you design it, it's a heavy metal top, a handle, so you can hammer. There needs to be very, very little in the design of a hammer with regards to form. Perhaps ergonomics, and I'll cover a little bit about ergonomics later. Ergonomics being the way in which you hold something comfortably, something is designed so that it's inclusive and can include anybody, whether they have arthritis, problems with their hands, or this is what ergonomic is about. So, form follows function. The term was first coined by an architect called Louis Sullivan, and he was an architect in America, and he sought to design buildings in which their functionality was shown in their form. So the form follows the function. So this is an office building. He figured it's a very modern building when this was built. It's designed absolute functionality, and with different floors being the same. Every office room is the same. It's functional, but it has an aesthetic that shows its functionality. There's no unnecessary decorative features. This is what modernism was about. It was about stripping back design. So let's take, for example, Khmer temples. They're very, very decorative, but those parts have no function. It's pure decoration. Form follows function is almost like evolution. It's almost like nature. It was taken from the ideas of natural selection, the idea that animals, insects, plants, they've all evolved through natural selection to breed mammals who are best suited to their environment through tiny quirks over millions of years. That they're the ones that breed best because they're best suited to the environment. Think of a bird flying. It's a perfect piece of design that's evolved over a million years. There's nothing on a bird, on any bird, that's unnecessary. It's all of its feathers, its skeleton is light, its tail, its feet, its beak, they're all evolved to be perfectly functional. Of course, some birds have beautiful feathers, birds of paradise, for example, to get mates. But generally, nature is all about functionality. So it's about stripping adornment back and showing a product or a building for its pure functionality. I mentioned an architect and designer last week called Mies van der Rohe, probably the pioneer of modernism. And this is a very functional building that he designed. This is called Farnsworth House, and it's probably one of the most iconic pieces of architecture of the 20th century. He designed it for a very wealthy and very educated client who wished to have a retreat, a place to go for the weekends to get away from the city life. It was built on a floodplain, so it's on 5-foot-high stilts. And what she enjoyed doing at the weekends, she enjoyed reading poetry, she enjoyed playing the violin, and she enjoyed nature. So this building was designed with absolute functionality in mind, but still having some poetry with its. You can look at this building and see exactly what it is. You can see the kitchen, you can see here, you can imagine being here playing in the violin, looking over nature. This is a floodplain, so the water goes up and the water goes down, but it doesn't affect the building. Pure function, but extremely aesthetic. Any adornment, anything pretty, anything unnecessary, taken away. Just to remind you, this was the Barcelona chair by Mies van der Rohe. So you can see in this building, in this chair, his principles once again. Just very light frame, a frame that almost hangs in the air. It's so light with its steel. And then a simple but aesthetic chair that's pure function. If modernism was the most important design movement of the 20th century, it was followed by a counter movement. And the counter movement to modernism was called postmodernism. And what postmodernist designers sought to do is essentially take a hammer to the modernistic principles and say, we like form, we like aesthetics, no to form follows function. I'm a designer, I can be as expressive and I can do what I want. And probably this is the most famous postmodernist piece of design. It's by an Italian designer called Ettore Sottsass. And it's a cupboard. You've got a cupboard here, and you put books here. It's actually a bookshelf. It's designed as a bookshelf. But you can imagine what the simplest design for a bookshelf would be. It would look absolutely nothing like this, would it? Nothing like this. If Mies van der Rohe designed a bookshelf, it would be very straight and perfect, probably light materials and subtle colours, whereas here, bold colours, bold form, a real expression of design. So this is postmodernism. And postmodernism is very important for architecture as well. This is a building in London called the Lloyd's Building. And it was designed by a very famous English architect called Richard Rogers. And when you look at this building, it looks out from the future, doesn't it? It could be in a futuristic film. But what he's done here is he's taken the functionality of a building, whereas previous, all of the functionality was on the inside. It's behind walls. In fact, nearly all buildings you see, all of the vital components, the plumbing, the electronics, if it's a big building, the lift, it's all on the inside. Whereas Richard Rogers sought to take all of those components and put them on the outside So you're no longer hiding away from the functionality. You're no longer necessarily stripping the functionality back. What you're looking to do is to celebrate its functionality. So here you can see it's a lot clearer. This is, do you know what this is? That's the lift shaft. So this is where it goes to the different floors. Can you see here, look, this is where the wires are. You can see the plumbing here. All of the functionality, everything is on the outside of the building. It's a very, very important building. Now, of course, with some products, functionality is crucial. I think if you went back 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, maybe longer than that, heavy objects for banging things, they were always the same. Ever since metal's been used, axes have been created, a heavy head and a wooden handle, or maybe a handle made of horn. This is a spoon. How can a spoon change? Its perfect function. This spoon here is from the Roman period. So this spoon is 2,000 years old. This spoon is about 5 years old. It hasn't really changed in the slightest. However, for lots of the products that we interact with nowadays, things have changed fundamentally. A camera. This is an Egyptian cinematographer from the 1930s. A camera back then was a really, really big, expensive piece of kit. Huge. You had to have the film which was horrendously expensive. Had to have large lenses, light set up. Whereas now, there is no real correlation between size and functionality. So form follows function nowadays, in a modern world, for the majority of products that industrial designers design, it's redundant. This is an iPhone camera lens. In less than 100 years, 70 years, we've gone from needing a huge piece of kit to something that can fit into your pocket, and you can create relatively high quality films with this technology. What's brought about this revolution is the microchip and the LCD. So the LCD has enabled you to see very clear visuals, and of course you now have touch screens, so you've got very clear visuals in front of you with a microchip, a processor. So no longer, if you're an alien and you came to the world 1,000 years ago, most products that you would see, you can think, I know what that does. It's a fork. They eat from that. You'd see a chair, wouldn't you? And you'd think, that's obvious what that is. Somebody sits down on it. You would see a wheel, and you would know exactly what that's for pulling goods. Now, if you're an alien and you came down to Earth and somebody put this in your hand, would you have a clue that it was a camera, that you could send emails to work, that you can call? We forget it's a phone. We can do all these different things, and the processor and the microchip has revolutionized that. There are, of course, products about today that still do have a functionality that's very clear. And just as Richard Rogers sought to celebrate the functionality of a building. So James Dyson has sought to celebrate the functionality of a Hoover. Have you seen the Dyson Hoovers? Well, this is a Dyson Hoover, and James Dyson is an English designer, and he basically designed Dyson Hoovers probably 15 years ago now. This is quite a new model, but it uses a vacuum in a very different way. This is a clear cylinder here, so as you no longer have a bag, it's just sucked into the clear cylinder. So it was celebrating its ability to clean up dirt, because as you hoovered, you see all of the dust and all of the grime actually in the clear cylinder, and you can see it has vacuums all around it here. When my mum first got one of these, because they're incredibly powerful, we had 4 different coloured carpets in our house. In my lounge, we had an old red carpet. In my bedroom, I had a blue carpet like the sea, because I was obsessed with the sea when I was younger. And in the dining room, there was a beige carpet. And we went around with one of these Hoovers, and we had about an inch of thick red dust, an inch of thick blue dust, and an inch of thick yellow dust. It needed a good Hoover. So this is an example of a product that is celebrating pure functionality. Now, can any of you tell me what this is? Yes, it's for the kitchen. No, I think you've got it.
Juice, like you take out the juice.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a lemon juicer or an orange juicer. So this is by Philip Stark, and Philip Stark was probably in the last 20 years, he would be the most superstar designer. Imagine Beyonce being a superstar singer, or Michael Jackson back in the day. These were the superstars of music. Brad Pitt in films. In design, it was a French designer called Philip Stark. And he took here pure functionality. So it's on a large legs tripod, and you put your glass underneath and you'd squeeze, and all of the juice would run down here and run straight into the glass. However, in reality, the juice goes all the way down the legs. In fact, there was another designer who got so angry with this that he filmed himself bashing it to pieces, because he just thought it was an insult to modernism because its functionality did not work. But what has he done here? He's taken function and he's sought to turn it into something absolutely beautiful. So with regards to functionality, I spoke about ergonomics earlier, and we'll definitely cover more about ergonomics because it's extremely important in design. However, I'm going to cover it briefly here. So ergonomics is the term used to describe how you hold something, how you sit in something, and how it's designed to best suit you. Okay? This is a, well, do you know what this is?
Knife? No?
Not a knife. Can you see? It's a peeler. So you would peel potatoes with this. These images are showing the development of the peeler for a company called OXO. And they produced a range of goods called OXO Good Grips. And the designer who designed these, what he thought was, he was at home and he witnessed a friend trying to peel using a traditional peeler, but she had arthritis in her hands. Her hands really were painful, so she couldn't grip at all. So he thought, what designers should do is they should make products so that they work for the people at the extremities. Rather than designing a product for the greater majority of people, you should design products for the extremities. Because if someone who has real difficulty gripping and using a product, if they can use the product, then the middle sorts itself out. Everybody can use the product. And that's what ergonomics is. And this is a classic example of ergonomic design. You can see here, can you see a range of the OXO Good Grips products. What you see here is the development of the OXO Good Grips. So you're learning how to use computer-aided design. And in the development of the first products, they produced likely hundreds of prototypes. Prototype being the word for an experiment in design that's made real, so you can test it. And they used the computer-aided design, and then they used 3D printing, like you're going to be doing, to create lots and lots of examples of products so that users could test them and see what worked. It's about functionality, so form follows function, but with the user absolutely at the root of that conundrum. So you're looking for something to be perfect, as it were. So what we have here are different Apple products.
Yeah.
And guess what's on the left?
Yeah.
Here? No, these are all products that were designed by a German architect called Dieter Rams. Now, Dieter Rams is probably the most respected product designer of the late 20th century. He would be the greatest influence to Jonathan Ive. Do you know who Jonathan Ive is? Well, Jonathan Ive designed this, he designed this, and he designed this. He's the head designer at Apple. So Dieter Rams sought to take products back to their absolute functionality with zero wastage with regards to form and just pure ergonomics. He was working with products that did have a digital element, and he just wanted to make his products absolutely clear for users. So what he actually did is he's famous for writing his 10 commandments for good design. Do you know what the 10 commandments were? Well, if you're a Christian, the 10 commandments are messages of how you live your life. They're 10 rules to follow to live your life by the 10 commandments. So the 10 commandments of Dieter Rams I don't necessarily want you to write these down right now, but I want you to think about them, okay? So, good design is innovative. Do you understand the word innovate? Innovate. So it's a fresh outlook on something, innovate. Okay? Good design makes a product useful. So no wastage. So it's about functionality. Good design is aesthetic. So aesthetic, it has to look beautiful. Good design makes a product understandable. Now think how that is in a modern world with the microchip, as we spoke about, with functionality being taken away and stripped back with the advances of technology. Good design should be unobtrusive. So unobtrusive is a word in English that means it does not get in the way. So just as it would be really frustrating if there was something right in front of my feet here, so I tripped over it, that would be obtrusive. So unobtrusive means doesn't get in the way, essentially. Good design is honest. So honest, it means pure, pure in form. So there should be nothing getting in the way from that, the singularity of that object, nothing getting in the way of how you see it. It's pure and honest in its function. Good design is long-lasting. Perhaps that is even more true than it's ever been as we design products to last for a short time. Good design is thorough, down to the last detail. This means design, every tiny little part of it, every corner, every edge has been considered. Good design is environmentally friendly. And lastly, good design is as little design as is possible. Okay? So there, Dieter Rams' 10 Commandments.
Can you elaborate more on the point good design is honest and good design is as little design as possible?
Okay, so honest is a word that, if you describe a person as being honest, if you say that person is an honest person, it means they do not lie, they tell the truth, they're very clear.
It's not deceptive.
Not deceptive. Very good. So if you describe a product as being honest, it's very clear, very pure, and not deceptive. Exactly the same. And when I say good design is as little design as possible, this again is about purity of form. It's about form follows function. It means doing away with all of the tussles, all of the colour, all of the, glitter to create something that's functional. So these 10 Commandments were Dieter Rams' 10 Commandments. They certainly certainly would not have been Ettore Sottsass's 10 Commandments. We saw the postmodernist designer and architect who designed the shelving unit, which was very expressive. He would have taken these and just gone, that's not good design. That's not good design to me. There's, of course, functionality in the temples at Angkor. They're designed in a grid system, but there's also elements that are cultural there, and there's beautiful components. So these 10 Commandments would not have been true to the designers at Angkor. What I would like you to do now is I would like you to think about what design means to you. Why do you do design? Why are you designing? What for? Who for? Is it for yourself? Or is it for somebody specific? Or is it for everybody? And what, perhaps, if you can't think of 10 commandments, at least try and think of 5 each, okay? And I want you to, again, I want you to discuss this in groups and talk amongst yourselves, and I'll come and sit down with you while you discuss this, okay? Awesome, thank you.